Hi there, friends. It's Bill McDonald, the reading and writing doctor. Today is going to be our probably most rigorous lesson when it comes to revising. Keep in mind that reading is your understanding of a paragraph or a passage. Revising is your ability to improve a paragraph or passage. In all of our previous revising lessons, we worked on a piece of the paragraph, such as a word, a phrase, a line, adding or removing, replacing or moving one of those things, combining sentences, changing the order of sentences, removing maybe one that doesn't belong, adding a specific supporting sentence to one location. But I'm going to say that probably without a doubt, whenever you're adding a sentence to a whole paragraph, when you're saying, what is the topic sentence for this paragraph, or the topic sentence that's there is too vague and we need to replace it by removing it read and replacing it with a better topic sentence, also known as a main idea, or if we're talking about an entire passage that has an introduction, body, we can say beginning, a middle, my three fingers there, and an end, then that would be a summary or a central idea or a focus, controlling idea or thesis. Because in reading, we just need to read and understand those things. But in revising, we need to add those things or remove the ones that are too vague and replace them with ones that are more specific. And it was because of the 2018 revising test that did so poorly with fourth graders that I actually came up with my graphic organizer that I use for both reading and revising, because the simple thing is this, that if you're looking at a passage, a selection, reading is just the understanding of the content or the paired passage, and revising is arm, adding, removing, replacing, or moving the content around in terms of its organization or development. So these three examples are about a topic sentence, a main idea, and a central idea that all scored like 39%, 40%, and 42% in Texas. So I knew that I needed to desperately do something that would be a more specific guide, something your students could easily do or make on test day that would help them with questions regarding an entire paragraph or passage. And the cool thing about using your hand, your palm is in the middle of your hand. And so we're going to talk about a couple of things that start with palm besides paragraph and passage. We need to think, what's the perspective? What's the point of view? What's the opinion? Point of view. Your thoughts and your opinions are your personal point of view. Is it in present tense? Is it in past tense? Is it from first person point of view, where it's I or me, second person you, or third person them, people that are outside this passage and selection? So using some of those P's, I'm going to show you just how easy the questions that we're going to look at were. So let's start by looking at question number one. if you go to your binder, it's basically a passage that was made to challenge students all the way from fourth to eighth grade. Because if at the end of the year, fourth graders were only able to get 40% correct on a question like this one, then something needed to be done differently. So what is the checklist that I like to do? I like rules because it forces you to read the question, to you to understand what the question is by labeling certain keywords in the question or drawing certain pictures in the notes or on actual notebook paper, line paper, or blank paper. Then beginning to execute your strategies, eliminate the three answers that are wrong if they're multiple choice, and selecting the, the correct answer, doing the strategies so you can come up with the answer or answers, um, whether it's multiple choice or um, open-ended. So reading softly is an important key for tests taking in the passage, in the question and the passage, understanding what it says in the question and the passage, or the paragraph they're asking, labeling in both places, and then eliminating three, selecting one. So let's take ourselves through the question so that we can highlight anything that we feel is an important detail. Joan wants to add, that's green for add, red is remove, green is replace, because whenever you remove something, replace it with something else, and M is move, yellow. Another detail to help build the ideas. So if I'm building the ideas, then where am I going to build them? In the first paragraph, sentences 1 through 6. So what do I need? I would typically need 6 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But because the question says which of these could follow sentence 4, then you don't always need to put all the fingers as long as you know what sentence 1, 2, 3, and 4 about, and what's the purpose. We're wanting to add to the main idea. So once we find out what the main idea is, we're going to see, well, before I can add my own sentence to an idea that's called the main idea, what ideas have they given us so far? So what I've done for you already is, instead of making you go ahead and go back to paragraph 1, sentences 1 through 6, which is right there, paragraph 1, sentences 1 through 6 of an expository and informative passage called A Video Game Control of a Different Type. There's your 6 sentences. But what I want to do is, I'm going to show you using the revising graphic organizer, how to lay out the paragraph so that you can have the best chance. So the question said, it was page 389 through page 393 is where we're getting this from. They were asking you not to put a box question, but to add a sentence, either A, B, or C, D, after sentence 4 to add to the main idea. So it was question 1, and It was about main idea of an entire paragraph. And again, those are difficult, you can tell. The other questions that we're going to look at today are a question that was going to be about uh, a topic sentence of a paragraph. And unfortunately, your kids didn't realize that a topic sentence, the top of a paragraph, is also just another word for the paragraph's main idea. That one got 39%, so even less than the one we're doing now. And the third one, we're going to look at how do I use the hand for an entire passage to figure out what a good central idea statement is. So sorry for the slight delay. I had to reload my printer. There was a ton of you that ordered these graphic organizers and folders, so I wanted to make sure that they were still printing while I was doing this with you. So here's paragraph one. Paragraph, palm, purpose, informative, point of view, perspective. It's that third person. Question number one was asking to add to the main idea. Well, let's find out what the main idea is. That 90% of children play video games. That's the big idea of the paragraph. Now, sentence two, it's an engaging source of entertainment. That's positive, plus arrow or plus symbol. It's an example, the most popular games are consoles, PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch. So there's three game consoles, and those are, I circled in popular because that's an opinion. So that's also positive, meaning plus. Okay. There's modern TV that you can use to play video games. That was sentence four. So we have one, two, three examples, and then you've got TV. And so whenever they say we want to add to the main idea, well, what is it that, what's another example? Because we have four already. What's an example, one or two, that could be some different types of video games that kids play, I'm guessing. And I could have gone on. It does transition after that one to go to the negative that it's taking up more and more time on the weekends and evenings. But because we wanted to add to the main idea before we transition to the negative, then let's see if there's something that allows us to do that. So I'll come back out and then I will take us back to the passage that had the question and take a look at the different choices. maybe there are other ways that you can play video games as well. Well, unfortunately, uh, since the term other ways is sort of vague and maybe is sort of vague, other ways that you can play games, I want to know what those ways are because the ones that they gave on the third finger and the fourth finger were specific. So I would probably say I might want to uh, eliminate letter A. Let's look at B. Cell phones even have the ability to play or download popular games. Well, are cell phones another example of the types of video games you can play? Yes, so I'm thinking that will be a better choice than A. One kind of game, Fortnite is the most popular game of all. Now, here's the problem with that. It's a distractor. It's a specific game. None of the examples mention games. They just mention ways to play the game. The Xbox, the PS4, the Nintendo Switch, the TV, and so cell phone. So whenever you compare um, a way to play to an actual game, then the better one, because none of the other examples were naming any games themselves, that would be a distractor. And I think, and I remember that a lot of kids, because it was such a distracting choice, chose one like this on the little test because it didn't it was maybe a popular answer like Fortnite is a popular game, and that is true that it's a popular game, but that's not going to add to the main idea. The cell phone, another way of playing would be. That's why so many kids love to play video games. I'm gonna be honest with you, the state is never gonna give you a choice that will say basically a summary statement. That's why anything. They're never gonna ask questions, and that wouldn't be adding to the main idea, that would be closing the main idea. So the only answer that would make sense would be cell phones. And so sometimes when you uh, go ahead and um, choose your answer, which would be in fact B, that you would enter into your computer response, sometimes on paper, or we in classrooms, we can do what we call a teachable moment of instruction. You can say, okay, are there any other devices that people can use to play video games? And one that comes to my mind is possibly a tablet. And so, what would you say? What do you think are some? And uh, if you wanting to actually practice a rigorous real test, then you don't have to use this one from the binder. You can go to the actual 2018 uh, STAR test. It was question number one that was very difficult, and only 40% of the students in Texas got it correct. So that's one example. Now, what I did next, I went ahead and decided to show you how easy it is to actually just say, you know what, I don't have a graphic organizer, but I do have my hand. And so with the concept of what we just learned, using the hand as a paragraph, laying out the details, I'm gonna again write the word poem. This time it's paragraph 3, and I've laid out all of paragraph 3, and you can see it all there. It goes from sentences 14 all the way to 20, and the question, instead of saying let's add to the main idea, let's actually replace a main idea that's too vague, this one here, and add one that's more specific. So what are we doing? Let me get my two colors that stand for adding or removing. What's going to happen is this red sentence, this red thumb, this old topic sentence is going to be removed, and something in the answer choices will replace it because it will be more specific to the content of paragraph 3. And I want you to notice that the first sentence is neutral, but all the other specific supporting sentences are negative with down arrows. And so that should have been a clue for your students and gotten us away from 39% to say, you know what, if I label each sentence in terms of is it a positive or a negative detail, then it would have made it easier for your kids to get it. So this time we're going to look at question number 6 on my passage, and let's see what made it so difficult for the students. Question number 6 is going to be on page 392. All right. So Joan would like to provide a better sentence to introduce the ideas, keyword, to introduce the ideas in the third paragraph, sentences 14 through 20. So that's why I drew those fingers, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And so, yes, your hand only has 5 fingers, but all you got to do is add a few more fingers and it'll help you. And I want to defend my graphic organizer and say whatever was being used on the 2018 test obviously wasn't working when only 39% of the entire state of Texas, when the test was taken in April, were able to do well. And you'll be able to see this example on the 2018 test, question number 8. So we're going to replace sentence 14, which means remove it first and replace it. Notice it doesn't say substitute. We want to, why? So we can have a more effective topic sentence. Okay? So if you can remember the different thumbs, children should spend less time playing video games. And I want you to notice there's a transition here. And there's a down arrow. More time doing things that are doing other things that are beneficial. So I see that I have a typo there, so I'll fix that. And so if the paragraph focuses on the amount of time that the kids play, then great. What they should do. Family time is going to suffer. Well, you're going to notice that's only specific to one of the paragraphs. If kids eat too much junk food, they're going to, while they're playing games, they're going to become unhealthy and gain weight. That's negative, but that's only about one finger, one sentence. This is only about one finger, one sentence. There are a few other negative effects that can result from playing video games for too long that people don't even think about. And so what you noticed was almost everything from 15 through 20 was the other negative effects that result from you play a video game, result is the effect. So playing video games is the cause, and then the effect, the text structure is a cause and effect relationship. And so we're going to see what some of those effects are. And so, yes, this is probably true, but since the entire paragraph was spent talking about specific negative effects of playing video games, I'm going to show you how this answer here was much better this than this one here. So the answer is going to be J. So I'll go ahead and pick it right now, but then I'll show you by your kids actually plugging in the sentences. And even if they don't do the hand, if they would have simply drawn a negative or a positive arrow, they would have been able to see that it wasn't a more or less time um, focus or topic for the paragraph. It was the negative things that can happen, the result, the effects of playing too many video games. So let's go ahead and see using my handmade graphic organizer how easy the answer would have been if your students would have simply done this. There's lots of other things that can about playing video games. Well, that's neutral because everything that's following is a negative character trait, a negative attribute of playing video games. I don't think I would want something neutral as the topic sentence, the main idea. So that's why that has to be removed and replaced with something else. There's less time for other beneficial activities. Like what? Family time, quality family time disappearing. The played kids playing their games at meal times, that there's no physical movement or exercise, that they eat unhealthy snacks while they're playing, and that causes them to become overweight. So since all of those are negative, the best topic sentence would have been the one that said, here's a bunch of negative things that happen as a result of playing video games. So I've got one more, and I want to show you. This one is going to be from the actual fourth grade 2018 test. They said what sentence could be added to clearly state the central idea of a selection. So when I touch the center of my hand, you'll be able to feel all the muscles moving. So a good central idea of a passage means it has to be about everything. And I'm going to show you just by reading the introduction that there was only really one answer because when you do the pre-read, you check the perspective, the point of view, what person is in, is it in past or present tense? There's some important things I want to share with you about the answer choices that will help us. And so before I get into Not even gonna let you see the first paragraph because this is what this is. And uh, again, it only got 39% in Texas because your kids had to understand the concept, the big idea of a whole passage, not just one paragraph. So sometimes for a person, all needed is a slight turn in life with some effort and luck. The idea that an idea can take a person to a wonderful direction. Wonderful is an opinion that's positive. That's what happened to Jeff Kinney. That some idea that he came up with turned his life in a positive direction. He was the creator of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. That's who he is. And millions of kids have read his books and seen his movies based on those books. That's positive and plus sign. So I want you to notice this is written in third person. So if your kids would have paid attention to that and the fact that the entire passage is being written in third person, they would have been able to have an easier time eliminating some answer choices because when you look at the actual test, let me go ahead and take you there. Here is the fourth grade uh, passage that did so poorly in 2018. And as you see here, there's nothing here about me or I or we. First person, I, 3 fingers down, me, 3 fingers up, or we. Everything was written in third person. So when you look at the answer choices, number 5, it said, question 5, which of these could follow sentence 5? That last one that we read, the one about millions of books have been written about him. Kenny's life story. Was it about Kenny's life story? Let's draw some walls separating the ideas. Yes, it was Kenny's life story. Wow. Perfect example. That means something good. Of a turn in the life. We did mention that in the first paragraph. Leading to great things. Yes, because when millions of people buy your books, then you become a millionaire. Kinney wrote the books in the Diary of Wimpy Kids and made some movie, and some movies have been made. Well, since that was only mentioned in the first paragraph, and they don't tell you what the great things are that happened or the turn of life, that one wouldn't make sense. Even though it's third person, I would probably say that might be one that we would eliminate because it really only talks about the first paragraph. And so when your students touch their thumb and wiggle their muscles, they won't be able to feel all those other muscles moving. But if they were to select one that was about everything, ah, there we're going to see some great things in this passage that talk about his life and how they made a positive turn around. Now, because the passage was written in third person, look how easy it would have been to eliminate letters C and D. Kenny had an interesting childhood, yes, and even more interesting adulthood. That's vague. What do you mean by interesting? Interesting repetition. Another reason I would eliminate it is what I think. Since this answer choice is A, too vague, what do you mean by interesting? Because it has repetition, that's another red flag. And because it was written in first person, I would get rid of that letter choice. Keeney is a person that you should like a lot. I'm going to tell you why. That, when you say that somebody should do something, that's persuasive, and they weren't trying to persuade you in this passage. They were trying to inform you. They were just giving you information. They were explaining about this guy and how he became so rich and so popular. And again, because first person was never used in the entire passage, your kids, when they do the pre-read, what point of view, what perspective is it being written? It's written from the outside. It's not being written by this I person who's telling the story. So that is two reasons. Those are two reasons why you would eliminate letters C and D. And again, it says nothing um, about what made his life turn around. The turning around part, that would be when we start counting little tally marks of things that contribute. It does have his life story in here. Um, it's a great example of what? A turn in a life that leads to great things. Him selling so many books. And so, yes, it may sound vague to the students, but when you look at letters B and C and D, all B does is tell us what he did in the first paragraph. We need what happened in the entire passage. That's the biggest difference between the main idea, the topic sentence of one paragraph, and the central idea of a whole paper. So pay attention to that part. They didn't ask you for the main idea of a paragraph. They asked you for a central idea of the whole paper. So that would have been letter A. So choosing letter A, what I would recommend that we do there. So feel free to share or tag one of your writing teacher friends. If you're in the breast online training, I want to do one more video for you before we close out revising. How do you wrap up a passage? Either closing a paragraph with a pinky, or how do we close the entire passage with the pinky? How do you tie everything together like the laces on the shoe? What's the dessert after the appetizer, the meats, the vegetables in the passage? What dessert can I give you that would be a great closure? And that would be my last pressed online training. Uh, I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you can see the importance of being able to draw a hand like we did two times on paper, and then using the actual redevising graphic organizer, uh, the laminated one. So all I have to do now is go to I have my um, my chemical, my nail polish remover, so that somebody who comes into my office and sees this, they don't think that it's water. I clearly mark it and label it. It's not water, it's polish remover. And so I'm going to be able to easily go and take off those keywords that I wrote on the laminated hand. If you have a question, feel free to email me at writing_doctor@yahoo.com. I'd love to come and do some trainings with you, your campus, your district on reading and writing. Um, this was part of the CREST training for revising. That's my website there in case you want to go check out some materials. I pray that you do not feel overwhelmed, that you feel blessed, that you look at every circumstance in life as an opportunity to help you grow. And so I want you to do your best to stay positive in spite how overwhelmed you might feel. Work on one brick, not one layer. Work on one brick, not the whole wall. Work on one brick, not the entire house. Just kind of start at the beginning, and that's what we did with editing and revising so far. And that's the same thing that we'll do in part 3 of Crest. When we get to the constructed response, we'll do some of the easier ones first, then transition, graduate to some more difficult ones. And then parts 4 and 5 will be closing out with uh, short answer responses to get the red light called a 1, the yellow light called a 2, and then the extended essay responses that will move it to the green light called the 3, and how to water that the red, yellow, and green flower with some blue in terms of the conventions and the content, improving that. So if you like this, share it with your reading and writing teacher friends. Message me if you have a question about the graphic organizers or the folders, or if you have a question about doing trainings with your campus or district, or maybe doing a one-on-one um, Zoom training with one of your children. I have a pretty good rate for that. Or I can host a training at your campus for $100 per person. All you've got to do is give me enough advance warning, hopefully get at least 5 or 10 people to commit at your campus or district, and be willing to open it up for others to be able to participate as well. So hope you saw how easy revising can be. If you think of revising just being improving the content, and this one by drawing a little hand for a paragraph or a passage. God bless you guys and take care.